Hello everyone, how you going? Welcome to iconic Canadian foods you need to try before you buy. Now I know a couple of these, just looking at this, it looks like we've got an Oreo beaver tail, but I'm just interested to see how many Canadian foods are there that I've just never heard of.
Does fried dough topped with peanut butter, chocolate, and Reese's Pieces sound absolutely delicious to you? What about a perfectly made bagel with a surprising hint of sweetness? If you said yes, then you might just be a fan of Canadian cuisine. One of the most famous Canadian culinary exports is undoubtedly poutine. This Quebecois dish consists of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy. The demand for poutine is so immense that major fast food chains like McDonald's and Burger King have included it on their Canadian menus.
Well, I didn't know that. I just assumed it was something that you would go down and get from a kebab shop or maybe a poutine shop itself, not that it was actually just to the point where you could get it from any fast food restaurant. And even the fact that it says right here, free poutine for the long weekend. Like, how much did that cost them considering it's gravy and chips? I can only imagine per dollar and per head it's not very much, but if you're having the entire country just go out and buy one, it's gonna be a little bit of money. And then in this one, it looks as though there's got some other things in here. I don't know what this big square bit would be besides some kind of meaty, I don't even know what it would be. I mean, I really don't know what the cheese curds actually are because I don't think that's even a thing at all in Australia. I've never seen buying from the shops or anyone ever talking about cheese curds. To me, it just looks like mashed potato, and I don't know if that's because I'm kind of expecting it to be on there given the gravy aspect, because in Australia it's not a completely unheard of thing to have gravy and mashed potato, especially on a pie, so I would just think that that's where they're going, but clearly not.
And there's even an annual Major League Poutine eating contest. Poutine's origins are hotly debated, with many restaurants understandably wanting to claim to be the spot that started the sensation. But it just seems wrong to fight about this when there's so much deep-fried, gravy-covered, cheesy goodness to go around.
But I was right, if that's the right footage, smoked meat poutine, and then this guy seemed to be eating that exact thing? Yeah, surely it has to be some kind of meat. There is no chip that is going to be that square and massive. But I've also just realized how many containers these people have eaten. My goodness, my heart died when I first heard of it, but I didn't even realize how many and calculate how many they've had. How do you possibly fit in that many chips into a human-sized stomach? That's ridiculous and just deadly.
Almost every country in the world has some version of a meat pie. Britain has steak and kidney, and empanadas are the stuffed pastry of choice throughout Latin America. Americans, of course, are big fans of a good old-fashioned chicken pot pie. As for Canadians, they love a delicious tourtière. Tourtière is a baked meat pie that consists of a bottom layer of pie pastry and a meat-filling center. Then it's topped with another covering of pie pastry before being baked in an oven. The meats used for tourtière are traditionally pheasant, rabbit, moose, or pigeon, though more contemporary versions can include pork, beef, or veal.
Well, just seeing this, now I'm questioning where the Australian meat pies even come from in the first place. Because if that's not an Australian looking meat pie, I don't know what is. That is just a perfect plain old meat pie. You know, you can get steak and gravy, you can get beef and gravy, beef and mushroom, any of the kind of red meats, you can generally find them in a pie. Definitely not the kind of pheasants and pigeons and things. That's a little bit too old for Australia, I would imagine. I don't really understand what's going on here because she said another layer of pastry, but that looks like it's almost a shepherd's pie with another mashed potato on top. And then this one doesn't even have the base, and so I have no idea what that is.
It's traditionally served during the holidays, which makes sense as the spice mix includes cinnamon, clove, allspice, and nutmeg. Our favorite tourtière-related tradition is that it's meant to be shared with family and friends. It doesn't get much more Canadian than that, eh?
Wait, what? It's sweet or is it savory? That's what I want to know, because you're having cinnamon and a whole bundle of other spices, but with a meat pie. And then that one even looks more like a pumpkin pie to me. I've never had pumpkin pie, but that looks like what I imagine a pumpkin pie looks like. It's so flat on top. I mean, I also understand why people would be having these in the colder holiday seasons, but at the same time, that just combination is just throwing me for a loop, because that one just looks like a square Australian meat pie, but then this one, I don't know how that and that are the same thing.
It's hard to think of Canadian food and not have maple syrup pop into your head. After all, the country's flag features the maple leaf as the bright and beaming center of attention, and deservedly so. As of 2020, Canada is reportedly the world's leading producer and exporter of maple products.
Is that even a surprise to anyone? Surely not. I don't think I would ever consider it coming from anywhere else, and so for her to say that, now I'm just curious what other countries even make it. Do Russia make it? Do any other kind of Nordic countries make it? I don't know.
Accounting for 79% of the global market, maple syrup and maple sugar products are created from the gathering and cooking of maple tree sap, which is collected by the tapping of the trees. These techniques were originally discovered by indigenous peoples and later adopted by French settlers. Maple syrup is so prevalent in Canada that it's sneaked its way into many otherwise traditionally unsweetened foods and beverage items, such as tea bags and protein powder. Of course, its hand in the dessert industry is also significant, with treats like maple cookies and maple candies readily available.
Wait, what are they doing there? Are they freezing it? Oh, I think I remember someone in the comments talking about this, but that is the first time I've actually seen it as an image. That just looks completely wrong, but I guess it's just water. Other than that, of course, these ones make sense. People are definitely going to want maple syrup, protein powder, and tea, and just everything they can get their hands on. In terms of the actual extraction process, though, at least I have seen the Heritage Minute just to give even more context, where the Aboriginal people were just obviously harvesting this for thousands of years, because it is quite a simple idea in terms of you just extracting tree sap from a tree. It's no big deal in that regard, but then the actual refinement of it is so particular to be able to get it to the quality that you can actually drink it. And I heard through the comments that that's pretty important because it comes out of the tree as water supposedly, and if you drink too much of that, you're just going to have a pretty upset digestive system.
What's the matter? Your mama didn't teach you how to chug?
What?
Come on, Thorn. Come on, Thorn. Oh!
Wow. That's insane.
The beaver tail is a Canadian national treasure. From British Columbia to Nova Scotia, so many Canadians have a soft spot for this chewy treat, made from hand-stretched wheat dough. While the traditional version is topped with a simple dusting of cinnamon and sugar, the beaver tail has evolved over the years into more than just a dessert, depending on where you are in Canada. For example, in Vancouver, you can get a salmon tail, which substitutes the standard sweet topping for a combination of cream cheese and capers.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about that and the fact that they've changed the name to salmon tail, but no, I just want to go back to this one. That is insane. What is the quality of the things I'm looking at here? I mean, I have no idea why the pretzels and marshmallows are anywhere near the vicinity of one another. I can't say I've ever thought of that being a combo that should be even explored. The only one here that doesn't look completely strange is the one front and center banana and cream cheese, I guess it would be, and then assorted nuts. That sounds pretty good, as well as the chocolate, of course. But yeah, I'm wondering now, is it a sweet bread? Like, do they add sugar to the bread? Because she said it was a hand-stretched wheat product.
Made from hand-stretched wheat dough.
Yeah, hand-stretched wheat dough, so no mention of sugar, but I can only imagine there has to be something in there, unless you go to a salmon tail, of course.
You can get a salmon tail, which substitutes the standard sweet topping for a combination of cream cheese and capers. In Mont Tremblant, you can pick up a ham and cheese tail or a steak top tail. A specialty of Halifax is the triple trip beaver tail, which is topped with peanut butter, chocolate, and Reese's Pieces.
What am I listening to? Why has everything so far been absolute heart attack city? Look at that, and what you just described doesn't sound any better than that. But then coming back to here, we just wrap up everything that we've seen so far between all the Oreos, marshmallows, banana, chocolate sauce. She said steak and ham somewhere fit in there. Obviously the cheese curds and gravy and chips for the poutine. Everything is just so heart attack causing, it's ridiculous.
There's even a popular Canadian restaurant chain called Beaver Tails, which has been serving up this iconic indulgence since 1978.
Okay.
The butter tart is one sugary sweet dessert that certainly deserves its highly esteemed reputation. A traditional Canadian butter tart is a tiny pastry with a wonderfully runny or semi-solid center. The filling is made from butter, sugar, syrup, and egg, then poured into a pastry shell and baked until the filling is semi-solid or runny, depending on your preference.
Wait, okay, sure. Once again, another heart attack causing thing, but what was I looking at before? Are they sultanas that have been baked in the syrup? I mean, that sounds completely fine from a taste perspective, but they look really, really weird. I do want to listen to the ingredients,
The filling is made from butter, sugar, syrup, and egg.
Yeah, so syrup is in there again, so I guess that's another thing they were able to squeak it in. But egg, where does the egg come in? Is it like egg whites? I can only imagine, surely, if you're going to be making some kind of syrupy, tarty, something like that, you don't want the yolk in there.
And then it's finished off with a crunchy top. As noted by Food Bloggers of Canada, the Women's Auxiliary of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook contains the first documented recipe for butter tarts.
Wow.
Published in 1900 in Barrie, Ontario, this appears to be the source that started it all. The original versions were made with maple sugar, freshly churned butter, and dried fruit, such as raisins or currants. They gained popularity in the 1920s, and the rest is beautifully buttery history.
I have to come back to this one because of course it looks like that, but I didn't expect it to go in as a liquid for some reason. I don't know, it just looks wrong. But hey, who am I to argue with this original recipe, which I need to listen to what she said the cookbook was, because it just sounds so much like the Country Women's Association's cookbook in Australia. It's not funny.
The Women's Auxiliary of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook
That is a very long name. Honestly, I thought the Country Women's Association Cookbook of Australia was a long name, but I think Canada has them beat. I mean, I'm sure it's virtually an identical thing. They were incredible cookbooks for their time, or honestly, not even for their time, but just an incredible resource for the cooking of the time. All of their recipes still stand the test of time, but no, I wonder who came up with it originally, because they can say the cookbook has the original, but who was the original person?
Much like the butter tart, the Nanaimo bar is yet another deliciously decadent Canadian dessert. Constructed of a graham cracker crumb and shredded coconut base, a custard-flavored butter icing in the center, and a chocolate ganache on top, the Nanaimo bar is a 3-layered, no-bake delight that's famous throughout the country. The Nanaimo bar is so popular that its origins are hotly disputed, as everyone wants a piece of the coconutty credit.
Well, like I said, I have heard of these before, but I forgot it was a no-bake, because I was going, okay, is it kind of like a caramel slice? But no, it's a no-bake. I think actually you can make no-bake caramel slices, but not like this. I mean, I am starting to worry that Canada lives completely and entirely off maple syrup and sugar. I guess we had the meat pie, but that also had a little bit of spice in it, so is there anything besides sugary treat, dessert, whatever you want to call it, in this entire video or in Canada as a whole? Because every single thing here just seems to be constantly like chocolate on top of chocolate, or chocolate on top of coconut, or chocolate on top of something, and then all of it just mixed together with maple syrup. But in terms of the ingredients,
Constructed of a graham cracker crumb and shredded coconut base,
yeah, okay, I know what the shredded coconut is, but what's a graham cracker? Oh, what? A graham cracker, not a graham cracker. That's news to me. Okay then, sure. A graham cracker is a sweet flavored cracker made with graham flour, that makes sense, that originated in the United States in the mid-19th century. I don't know what it actually is. Here we go. What is the equivalent of graham crackers in Australia? I was about to ask that. First off, try digestives. Okay, yeah, I understand where they're coming from. I've had a few of those in my time.
According to legend, a group of friends from Nanaimo, British Columbia, found the recipe in the Vancouver Sun. At the time, it was known as chocolate fridge cake, and the friends changed the name in honor of their hometown. The recipe made its way throughout the province's communities, circulated by housewives and home bakers. This story's validity is unconfirmed, but it has a nice ring to it, so we'll happily spread it. The bars enjoyed a rise to fame during Expo 86 in Vancouver, and they've been a national jewel ever since.
Wow. Well, geez, I'm glad that I've watched all the Heritage Minutes so I have a little bit more context, because I know about Expo 86. I mean, I didn't know that Nanaimo was a place, but hey, at least it makes sense where it got the name, especially considering it was what, just chocolate fridge cake? Yeah, chocolate fridge cake, even though it kind of says exactly what it is, it doesn't sound anywhere near as cool as Nanaimo bars.
Montreal's travel website describes the city's signature smoked meat as a beef brisket that's often piled high between rye bread and served with mustard and a fresh dill pickle. Unlike New York-style pastrami, Montreal smoked meat uses the entire brisket, whereas the NYC deli equivalent is taken from the much leaner navel cut. The spice mix is also different, with pastrami heavier on the sugar and Montreal meat relying more on black peppercorn and other spices.
Oh wait, did she just say someone's putting sugar with meat? Yeah, I can only imagine she's talking about the New York City version when she says that they use less sugar, or I guess no sugar in the Montreal version. But honestly, some of the stacks that these people have on their sandwiches, I don't know how you eat that thing. I've never seen so many layers. Like, why do you bother being put in so many layers? Yeah, here we go. Like I was saying, you just have so many layers. I mean, I guess in the other one, it didn't look like it was layers. It was more just the brisket itself. But it doesn't take away from the fact that that is a very tall sandwich by the time you have all of that meat and then the pickle and then just 2 fat slices of bread. You know, in a burger, I think it makes sense, because generally if you have the patty and then about 7 other ingredients in it, where that's only, what, 2 ingredients and 1 sauce.
Montreal smoked meat is so popular that it's now popping up in many other culinary preparations, such as atop poutine and as a pizza topping. Many deli counters.
What else was on there? What are they? Are they eggplants? Are they cucumbers? What am I looking at there? And even the meat underneath doesn't look real. It looks like someone splayed out an entire capsicum on the whole pizza and then put a cucumber or something on top. Actually, it's probably a pickle, but that's small pieces. Unless you can get, I guess a full cucumber. Geez, there are just too many things that I just have never seen going on here for me to try and figure out what am I looking at.
Many deli counters and restaurants in Montreal all claim to have the best version. It's a hotly debated topic, but we think the only responsible choice is to hop on a plane to Montreal and decide for yourself. Jumping into the sugar-coated fun of the other delicious desserts on this list, Saskatoon berry pie is a regional trademark of Western Canada. The tasty appeal of these berries, which grow from the plains to the coast of British Columbia, dates all the way back to their use by Canada's Indigenous peoples. They were often ground into a paste and dried for winter storage. They've since made a name for themselves in the Canadian pastry world, and interestingly enough, they're protected by the Catalogue of Foods known as the International Ark of Taste.
Well, I feel like I missed the name of these berries because she was talking about the pie, I thought, but I guess it's called Saskatoon berry is the actual berry name. I mean, I don't doubt that it would taste fantastic because any of those kind of glazed and sugary berries are just going to come out and create an incredible pie no matter what it is. And I'm sure that somewhere along the line, someone has probably squeaked some maple syrup in there or a whole bundle of different things and just made it even better perhaps. But I guess my main question is, how is it called Saskatoon berries if they're found from the east to the west coast of Canada?
Served in many Saskatchewan and Alberta pastry shops and confectionaries, the famous Saskatoon berry pie is made from flour, pastry, butter, eggs, and of course, Saskatoon berries.
Simple.
Often paired with vanilla ice cream or whipped cream, this pie is a Canadian culinary treasure.
Yeah.
Lots of Saskatoon berries, yeah.
Wow. I wonder how expensive they are because that's always the thing with berries in Australia, or just generally I always perceive berries as being quite an expensive thing because they're difficult to get high volumes of. But I guess if you are able to grow them in such vast quantities in terms of all over Canada, east to west, doesn't matter, then maybe they're not that expensive.
If you grew up in the United States, chances are you know Peameal bacon as Canadian bacon. Unlike its fattier cousin that consists of strips of belly, the Peameal variety is lean pork loin that's been brined and rolled in cornmeal. During the mid-1800s, Canada would export its pork to England, which was experiencing a shortage at the time. For preservation purposes, the pork was rolled in ground yellow peas, which is where the name Peameal comes from. Sometime later, the ground peas were swapped for cornmeal,
like chicken.
but the name stuck, at least in Canada.
Geez, well I had no idea what this was going to be at first. It didn't particularly look very appetizing. I'm going, is that like mold or what is that? What am I looking at here? But then for them to say it's corn, I go, oh. Okay then, which I guess comes from the fact that Australia doesn't really use corn, certainly not to the same extent that North America does. I guess you can get corn flour, but even then, not many people are getting corn flour. They're going to get like wheat flour out of anything. And then I have no idea how that is going to preserve it, but hey, I guess we've just moved past the technology, but if it worked once upon a time, I'm sure it would still work now.
The classically Canadian Caesar cocktail may be a drink instead of a food, but it's so often served with edible garnishes that we decided it was safe to count it, especially since it's basically a magic potion for curing a hangover. Sometimes known as the Bloody Caesar, this drink is made of vodka, clam juice, tomato juice, spices, and Worcestershire sauce. It's typically served in a highball glass that's been rimmed with celery salt and topped with any number of garnishes, from celery to olives to lime wedges to pickles to even shrimp or bacon.
What am I looking at here? That looks completely absurd. They've got a sandwich in a drink, for goodness sake. It looks like you've just gone and taken one of those completely random places that put Oreos and donuts and everything on milkshakes and just done that to a cocktail, but then at the same time she said it's a hangover cure. So how are you having vodka and whatever other concoction of things they want to throw in there and making it make any sense and making your head feel better? I mean, yeah, you might be having a stick of celery. That seems to be the common ingredient throughout all of these, but I don't understand how you can add more alcohol as well as some fruit and call it a healthy drink or just a hangover cure. It just doesn't make sense because if there wasn't vodka in it, there is no way that this would be a thing. And so why are people trying to make just another random excuse to have vodka just by mixing Worcestershire sauce, clam juice and tomato juice in one, as well as a sandwich? It looks like, I don't know, chicken strips and celery together. What is going on? And you know how I said with the other pastry, who made that in the Women's Association cookbook? Who the hell decided that this was a good idea? They should be punished to hell.
The Caesar was invented in 1969 by restaurant worker Walter Chell, who was an employee of the Calgary Inn. As the inn prepared to open a new restaurant, Chell was asked to create a cocktail to commemorate the occasion.
What is that? Why is there bacon in an alcoholic cocktail with peppercorns around the outside? Riddle me that. No, it just should not be there.
In 2006, the Caesar was ranked number 13 on the CBC TV show The Greatest Canadian Invention. Then, in 2009, it received a rather prestigious honor for its 40th anniversary, as Calgary Mayor David Bronconnier declared that the Thursday before Victoria Day, every May, would be Caesar Day. Later that year, Canada Dry Mott's launched an online petition to make the Caesar the official cocktail of Canada.
Honestly, I'm starting to understand why the USA calls them the Crazy Canucks, because this is just off the rails. The fact that people want to make this an official drink of the entire nation, as well as giving it a day, and well as giving it like the best invention of all time, no. You can't be having all these awards for a drink that has that as its entire personality.
If you're American, New York is probably the first place you think of when bagels come to mind. And that would be fair, as the Big Apple undoubtedly has some of the best bagels in the world. Chewy but never doughy, beautifully crusted with a glistening sheen, delicately tangy but never overpowering, New York bagels have earned their glowing reputation. But upon further investigation and research, you'll discover that they have a worthy rival up north in Montreal.
Well look, there has certainly been some strange ones on this list, definitely including the last drink, and others that I go, okay, that makes sense, but I've never heard of it. Where this one, I don't know why, but Australia just doesn't really have bagels. It's just not really a thing. To the point where I think most people wouldn't know what to do with a bagel. They would recognize it as a bagel, but go, okay, do I eat it just plain, or what do I do with this thing?
While the two types have their similarities, the main difference is in the cooking process.
Okay.
Montreal bagels are first boiled in water that's been sweetened, usually with honey, whereas New York-style bagels are boiled without this sweet addition.
Oh.
Montreal bagels are also traditionally baked in a wood-fired oven, resulting in a richer, more flavorful crust. They're often a bit smaller than their sometimes massive New York cousins, and they're also traditionally studded with sesame and/or poppy seeds.
Why does that look like someone has sprinkled a whole bundle of horse-hay just all over a bit of dough or a bread loaf? Honestly, if you told me to eat that, I'd go, okay, what did you drop this in? Why do you want me to do it? You're gonna have to pay me, I don't know, $200 to take a bite of this. It's probably just grass, but hey, I guess I'll do it for a bit of money. And what I'm wondering is, how did they get to that? Like, they went from just these completely donut-looking sesame-seeded bagels to that, apparently. I mean, I must admit, I had no idea that bagels just in general were boiled. I just assumed we would just chuck them in the oven, but hey, I guess not. I mean, considering how popular they seem to be, it makes sense that that process clearly works, but yeah, I would never have thought that you would boil bread.
Another notable difference is the topping choice.
Hey.
While New Yorkers and lovers of New York-style bagels everywhere tend to top their
Cream cheese?
bagels high with everything from cream cheese to fried eggs to lox, Canadians often enjoy their Montreal bagels plain, without adornment at all. With that delicious honey-induced sweetness already baked in, any topping would simply be superfluous.
Now I'm extra confused because I don't see how you would want to eat just a plain bit of dough, because like we're seeing here, I'm just assuming the bagel is a bread substitute, not that you would just have it by its own. So maybe you guys can let me know how that whole thing works. I mean, yes, it sounds like it's a little bit sweet and I think a bagel's savory, but for them to be covered in sesame seeds to that extent and have a honey taste, I mean, it would work, but I'm just still curious about how it works.
There are a lot of sweet treats on this list,
You
and
can
for
say
that
that
reason
again.
alone, we're having a difficult time stopping ourselves from booking a one-way ticket to the land of maple syrup. In the meantime, we'll be salivating over our next Canadian confection selection, the tarte à sucre, also known as sugar pie. Simple
Sugar
in
pie.
all the best ways, this dessert happens to be a favorite of Canadian native and top chef judge Gail Simmons. It's filled with a mixture of cream, maple syrup, sugar, and lots of butter, then baked to
course.
golden perfection.
Well, to me that just looks like a bigger version of the butter tart, and it sounds like it's a pretty similar ingredients list as well. There's butter in it, there's egg in it according to what we had here. I guess there's cream, that wasn't in the other one, and maybe the dry ingredients differ a little bit, but so far to me it sounds very, very similar.
As a holiday tradition in Quebec, many French-Canadian families consider the tarte à sucre to be an integral part of their holiday meals.
Liquid again.
Served at the end of a festive feast, a slice of sugar pie is often topped with a simple, luscious dollop of whipped cream, needing no further adornment. To paraphrase a certain classic Motown song, "Sugar pie, honey bunch, you know that we love you." We can't help ourselves.
Wait, there is no way that that song remotely is referencing the actual pie. Surely not. I don't know where they're originally from. Are they from Canada? I'm just gonna have to say no. I'm just going to say that she's joking and being sarcastic, but sometimes you never know. I mean, I am still confused because it is so runny, but then you bake it. I would have thought that you would then freeze it perhaps, but not bake it. I mean, I guess it's just going to reduce down to the sugar content, but generally when you reduce something, I always imagine on the stove, so then the steam and everything can go somewhere. So in an oven, where's all that steam going to go, or is it just going to be a really, really, really humid oven? Either way, I feel as though whenever they're just very simple ingredients, you just whack it all together, mix it in and bake something, it is just always going to taste fantastic. You know, it's why people lick the spoon and lick the bowl and all those things. It's because all of these just simple ingredients, generally be sugar and maple syrup and egg and flour and those kind of things, just generally just taste awesome. And so I can understand how if you just make it a liquid form and then bake it and it turns out solid with some little bit of whipped cream on top and I guess some more nuts in this case, it definitely makes sense how it's going to taste pretty darn good. But once again, I'm just wondering, how do people come up with these recipes in the first place? That's what I want to know, because I can understand baking with dry goods and a couple of kind of combining agents, but liquid baking is just completely new to me. But look, every single thing that we've seen throughout this entire video is just show that Canada knows how to do sweet things, or at least unhealthy things, pretty darn well. I'm sure they taste great, and they sometimes seem to be using some Canadian only ingredients, so that's a great thing as well. But just generally, I feel as though just being a little bit more, I don't know, health conscious might be a good thing as well sometimes. else. And that doesn't mean just going and whacking a piece of celery or whatever else you can fit into an entire drink, being tomato juice and everything else with vodka in it. No, that's not healthy. That's just a concoction of randomness. Either way, it was definitely interesting just learning about all the different things that Canada has to offer, all the competitors that they offer to the United States, so everyone has to step up their game, and just generally things that I'm interested in trying for the most part. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the YouTube algorithm things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, then make sure to go check out any other ones I've done. Also, make sure to go check out the original video down in the description below, or hey, maybe even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.